This is probably the most political I'm ever going to get on this channel. I am a channel purely based on video games, and it's going to remain as such. I try to keep all of my personal life and other things out of this. Of course, I'll say I'm a teacher or a martial arts instructor, stuff like that. But I tend not to let my personal views on society affect how I believe and how I think, especially on this channel. I'm just here for fun. That being said, I do want to talk about this constant rhetoric of blaming and scapegoating. For those who don't know, in the past week, El Paso, Texas was assaulted by a terrorist, by a white supremacist terrorist who hurt many people. Give me one moment. I believe it was 22 dead. El Paso victims. Yes, there were 22 people who were robbed of their life far too early, entirely based off one's horrible rhetoric on how he believes that America should be. I only wish the best for their families, their friends, and I truly do wish they can move past this. But yet again, and I think it's probably unfair to say this, or not say this, but don't see this as me trying to use their deaths as a mean to push my own rhetoric once again. Once again, in the media, video games are being blamed for such a tragedy. I'm not a politician. I'm not anyone who can probably analyze all of the things that go into being a politician or the world or America itself. I'm an upper middle class African American who's never really had any actual real hardships in my life. So I cannot say or understand the struggle that a lot of people go through. But I am someone who has played a massive amount of video games in my lifetime. I probably spent years worth of time on video games, if not more at this point. So I can safely say one thing is not true. We need to stop blaming all these tragedies on video games. We need to stop looking for scapegoats and using any kind of means to blame video games rather than taking a moment and seeing the true issues, like the availability of guns and how lax our gun laws are. And I'm not saying that we should ban guns. It's not what I'm saying here. But it is insanely easy for even the mentally disabled to acquire guns in our country that no other country has. Video games are this constant blame, and every single time there's a shooting, someone, in this case, a Texas politician, Republican politician or something. Wait, no, that's not fair to say. Who is it? The Texas governor, Dan Patrick, is blaming video games as the current cause of this current shooting. Mind you, for anyone who has read the Manifesto, which will be linked in the description below because it is pretty hard to find, even though I don't think it should be, the only mention of video games is a single notation, a quite literal single notation, where the perpetrator of this said, oh, you should always attack easier targets because it's just easier that way. Go for the low-hanging fruit. Kill people at the bottom rung. Don't think this is Call of Duty. He did not use Call of Duty as a means of saying that this is the reason he's doing this. No. He says he was just using it purely out of context as a means of how, if you want to follow his example, this is what you should do. And yet, violent video games are blamed. Mind you, there's never been a single refutable study that has shown that there has been a link to violent video games and increased violence. Not a single one. And if you want to ignore every single one of the other multiple countries that have just as many video game players and yet has a massive decrease in social terrorism like this, yeah. Look at Japan. Sure, they just had a the Kyoto Animation Studios was just bombed, but that is an extreme rarity compared to the common levels of violence that we have in America. Australia, massive. They have mosque attacks every once in a while. We did one happening a couple of weeks ago, but again, this is a rarity compared to how common it is in America. I just think there are other issues that we need to tackle first before we can just blanketly blame video games for being violent. And I hate that it's constantly, every single time that something like this happens, they're constantly used as a scapegoat rather than taking a moment to look at the actual issues going on. But this is just my personal thoughts. Again, I do wish the best for the victims and the survivors of this, and I truly do wish their families can get going through all of this. I think for right now, that is all I will say. Have a good morning, evening, day, and nights.